Good evening, viewers, and welcome to another session of Mazungumzo. This is your host, as usual, Dr. Gilbert Githere, coming to your homes with another session of Being in Time. And this time I'm going to just start straight away. Horizontal leeway. Horizontal leeway is like, it's a horizon, is an area that you want to kind of bring out and see the entities who make up Dasein or who help Dasein exist. So when you want to decipher the entities, as we have been looking at, horizontal is one of the areas. For example, you might take, I give you an example of the history of the development of a plate. You can go way back in the primordial and you can try and see how it has developed. That is horizontal. And you can also bracket, that is Hesselian. You can bracket some things off so that your study does not get affected by other areas. And then you just concentrate on the history of the development of something like a plate in people's social life. So horizontal leeway is ecstatical, is a path for deciphering for a new item or equipment. Irrespective of what Dasein tries to do about the damaged item, its utility outweighs all that he does. The need remains very real in Dasein's everydayness. Now we are continuing our discussion. So this is something you're familiar. We are talking of things which become relics. What becomes of them in the museums? As long as an item was once used, when it actually now becomes unusable, it becomes in the realm of ready to hand and present at hand as if it had never been discovered. So if they renovate it, as I was saying, then it becomes an item where it is helping Dasein to exist. But as it remains an antique, a monument, or a critical, and that is the three pieces that are considered as relics. Temporality as a structure allows one to let go that which one has lost or is locked in limbo in awaiting of making present. In awaiting making present mode, the dialectics of the spoiled item being there and yet still damaged. Dasein let go an attitude to that which he cannot possess. Although the need is still there, is a positive stance. That which one can let go has been of satisfying usage when it was available, and no regrets about it. The idea of later going back to it for more good use still lingers in the mind, ready to hand. Very interesting discussion about things in the museum. A tool in the hand of Dasein which does not satisfy him fully. Though gotten through temporality, Dasein has the ability to understand that there are those times he will not be a master of everything. When science enters this scene on the issue of discovery of entities in the realm of present at hand and ready to hand, the method in use here has to synchronize with the one of existential ontological systems. Because as we said earlier, the existential ontological system is actually of the natural nature. But there is also the scientific way of deciphering and uncovering things through research and sciences. That one you're familiar with. What allows the above to be possible is to unravel the idea of being and truth. How do they bring together their methods of discovering entities? The world of science is always wanting to link the objects with their true knowledge, while the existential ontological method links entities, objects, with their relevant being, this case Dasein, especially when it comes to Dasein's existence. So you can see it's actually two ways of uncovering entities. One is a scientific way, and one is relevant to being. Science scrutiny allows discovery of entities or being of objects. In nature, matter has the following qualities: motion, force, time, and location. But still, the above characteristics have to be deciphered for their entities who can help Dasein's existence. Matter in the above mode is in a state of present at hand and ready at hand. In Dasein, being able to project circumspection through its understanding, it discovers matter which a priori can exert force on a surface that is located on or in. The exerted force can also cause some movement of the piece of matter in question. All the above activities happen within a certain time, so duration is of utmost importance and is imperative. Projection here allows the above entities, motion, force, location, and time, to show their being, and at the same time the entities who can help Dasein exist shows themselves. The totality of the items that make up the existential conception of science, for example, the being of the entities that make up motion, are set free to show themselves. This awaiting of disclosedness has its existential basis in a resoluteness by which Dasein projects itself towards its potentiality for being, in the truth makes up a definite way in which Dasein may exist. That one you got to kind of, ponder over it, decipher it, and disconstruct it, thematizing objectifies. Thematizing objectifies. Understanding allows discourse to take place, allowing the deciphering of entities, being alongside Dasein. This also allows a way on how to conceive the entities is to be made possible. Being and truth. The totality of projecting is called thematizing. Thematizing allows Dasein to see beyond abstraction within the world of the present at hand and ready to hand, allowing Dasein to see entities for what they are. Thematizing allows the entities to be discovered at the same time to be freed such that the present at hand and ready at hand lets them be seen as themselves and be able to exhibit their being. Also, in other words, these actions let them be objects. Thematizing, which is from a word from theme, also allows modification and articulation of the entities, and so allows the understanding of their being. Dasein's ability to do this comes through the ability to involve itself in a scientific research. Dasein is able to identify who the entities are that play a role in his existence. Involvement makes them discoverable. You got to involve yourself in a research for you to be able to discover. Is that simple? At the same time, these entities that are discovered also allow them to show if they are the ones who Dasein need for his existence. Circumspection involves 1. In order to, 2. Towards which, 3. Towards this, and 4. For the sake of which. This unity is what makes up the world. That's a mouthful right there. Well, these statements of circumspection are actually what makes the world. In order to, yes, in order for you to conduct a research, there is need that maybe you want to unconceal some things, discover them, decipher them, towards which they're going to involve themselves in helping Dasein exist, towards this, towards our survival, towards everydayness challenges, and for the sake of which he's going to live, he's going to survive, and be able to become a finite entity that will have an end, but at a later date after facing the challenges through anticipatory resoluteness. Ontologically, how is the world possible with Dasein in it? This is a question. Dasein exists for potentiality of being itself. Dasein is thrown there. Dasein understands so well when it comes to its existence. It knows who its entities are for its survival, for the sake of itself. Dasein's being is care. You remember we say that it's a very important aspect of Dasein. Care. Ontologically, care can be defined as temporality. The act of deciphering there can be called temporality there. You know, challenges that face Dasein in his existence and who entities help in that existence is actually considered there where have been thrown or fallen. Doesn't being is care ontologically can be defined as temporality. I think I read that one. The existential temporal existence of the world is directly linked to temporality, and it contains ecstatical unity with the horizon as a component. When I told you the horizons is the areas or the realms that people are unconcealed from, the entities. Each ecstasis has a horizon with its unique state. There are 3 ecstasies: making present, future, and has been. Because the tempo of life has got to jive, around tempo. And it's like ecstasy. And those 3 things make up ecstasy: making present, future, and has been. The horizons have their own explanation as follows. The future-looking one entitled for the sake of itself, and the one which concerns itself with the present being alongside called in order to. In this horizon, Dasein is thrown abandoned, and then lastly, but not the least, the horizon that deals with the past called what has been. The three horizons together are termed ecstatical, unity of temporality. A whole horizon, basically, when completely deciphered, it contains the entities that have been discovered. Dasein has these facts making up its existence. One, being there, and two, potentiality for being. These two facts are taken care of by the three horizons we dealt with in the above paragraphs, and these are present, future, and having been. The schemata is made up of three horizontal, and these are: one, in order to, present, having been, and three, future. In ecstatical temporality, the present leaps at a weight and produces making present. There is forgetting on that part of the present, which an act of falling brought to this awaiting position. The present can be equated with innovation of new equipment, and it was being awaited in the place of present. Making present takes over as equipment. The act of innovation is gotten, and the present leaps away to another future. This is the temporality temporizing. Making present is a state of innovation. That's what making present is. Before there is an innovation, there is present in that situation of an item waiting to be innovated. And that awaiting is awaiting to make present of the innovation. If it's a hammer, for example, when they discovered a hammer, the hammer was present to hand, ready to hand. Just as I said, a statue in a log is in there, but we have to have a sculptor to bring it out. So as the statue exists in the log, it has to be made present. It's awaiting in there to be made present. Making present actually is the sculpture and his equipment getting out the statue and putting it resting somewhere already done. It has been made present. It was awaiting in the log. There were time passed. There was a temporizing until the sculptor was educated. He was there and he had the right tools and he brought out the log. It's an interesting concept, but slowly we're gonna decipher it and you're gonna see it in very clear form. Dasein temporizes itself all the time. At the same time, the world does the same. It temporizes itself. It is important at this point to recapitulate what some words mean and what is behind their use at this juncture. I am going to elaborate the word primordial. Primordial, according to Martin Heidegger, is the beginning of time, when not much human tampering with the definition of entities was there, as and for that matter, the definition of the entities, they pertain to the existence of Dasein. At this primordial time, the ecstasy, horizontal temporality, was put into action to analyze the discovery of entities who helped in the existence of Dasein. Excuse me. The method used to analyze entities was existential ontological phenomenology of the facticity who make up Dasein. Also at this point, I will revisit the concept a horizontal unit. For example, these pieces make up the unit in question: present at hand and objectification. Another term I would like to touch on is horizontal unity of statistical temporality. This term is an equivalent of saying an abstract world. Ecstatically, the world is disclosed. The word schemata means theory in the form of outline. The primordial world in its ecstasy way is analyzed using the list that makes up the schemata. For example, here is 1, in order to, and 2, for the sake of. Excuse me. In this analysis, Martin Heidegger introduced the idea that Dasein possesses these characteristics: 1, directionality, and 2, ability of disseverance, eliminate separation or distance that is in between. Disseverance, putting a distance between yourself and something, disseverance. Martin, he also said that temporality is the foundation of Dasein's spatiality. Also, it is ecstatical horizontal in its being. It has horizons. Those are the areas of circumspection. Historically, there will be the era that that time, for example, in the 14th century, Gutenberg, invented the printing press, which was present at hand and ready to hand, and then it was brought out by the people of the time, so people could print more books. And making present at that particular time, that date, the printing press was discovered. The present moved in temporality, the move that movement of life. Things are happening in a tempo. There's a tempo in life, and that is actually kept and registered by the clock ticking. That's life temporalizing. The temporality is within space and time of now as now 1, now 2, now 3. Also, being in the world is directional. Falling is directional and has a stop point. Bringing close is also directional, has the aspect of space in between and comes to a stop at a certain point. The point could be such that they stop at the same point. Ecstatically, temporally, horizontal. This point can be an equivalent of present, making present, awaiting, forgetting, innovation of a new equipment, falling, leaping, now, future, past, having been, ready to hand. The existential structures of care are made up of bringing clothes and being busy. Oh, there's a typo there. It means just. To expound a little more about this statement, a person can only take care of that which is close to them, and at the same time, it must be something they understand. Because one of the entities that we have discovered who help in dozens' existence is understanding. Because knowledge has got to be acquired. Understanding is acquisition of knowledge. Because the entities that help design be who he is are a kind of acquisition of knowledge. Falling and bringing close have something in common. And thus, when something falls, it ends up settling in a certain place. Bringing close also implies something moves from one distant to a near point. So what I see as similar is that they both end at a certain point. It is also vital at this point to say that the falling and bringing close means founded in the present. Similarly, there is the idea of temporality, horizontal effect in the falling, bringing close, and present, which also ties together the idea of awaiting, leaping, forgetting, and making present, unpresent. Because there is making present and there is making present. As we said, an item could be usable at a certain time, but it becomes obsolete over history, and it remains as a relic of history, a monument. Once the hammer has left the world of present at hand and ready at hand, it is discovered and goes to a state of ready to hand and is an equipment or tool ready for use when doesn't feels like hammering. Awaiting is replaced by present, and immediately forgetting sets in and existence continues as usual. You forget that once you did not have a hammer. It becomes so part of your reflex that you don't remember one time you didn't have a hammer. So there is the aspect of forgetting is that sweet, and that abstract. This is dialectics at play. Existential temporality constitution is made up of many nows, suggesting existence is made up of time and space. There were news that Dasein did not have a hammer. Then the invention was done and the hammer was available, awaiting the discovery of a more sophisticated model, for example, a motor hammer, motorized, where you have a battery operating the hammer so that when you hit the gear, it sends the nail into the wood. So the hammer has been improved on, motorized. You have a motorized hammer. Let me just check how many minutes I have here. 29 minutes and 6 minutes. Temporality and historicality. Temporality and historicality. Because as the tempo, which is time passing, and as you know, dates and events, when they are recorded in journalism or in history, when events are actually put down, or it happened on this day, this time, and the action was like this and like this, the Titanic sank on this date, and so many people perished and these people survived. There was that tempo people were discovering how to travel using vessels. They discovered ships. They discovered aeroplanes. So before there were these discoveries, there were times that these things were not available and people were just kind of searching. And as they did that, time was passing and history was recording what they were doing. So bang, they built this big ship and it took sail going someplace, crashed onto an iceberg, and the Titanic was no more. Our analysis there heretofore has been centered on trying to decipher the meaning of being. In order to be able to do this within existential analysis, we have to expound the idea of phenomena. This simply means broadening the scope of understanding with this phenomena of being. We have to go back to the beginning of the phenomena and see what it says about being during that time. Most definitions of being, in most cases, have remained obscure and for that reason need more analysis. The right questions have to be formulated regarding the topic of being. Questions have to be clear and be understood to be directly addressing themselves to the problem or meaning of being. We've got to be very careful. We've got to be succinct that we are actually dealing with who are the entities that help Dasein, the being of Dasein possible, so that it could exist. The right questions have to be formulated. Excuse me, we went through that. The meaning of being seems to be very much interlinked with the one of temporality. And so if the questions posed about being are made to address the issue of temporality, then the concepts behind who are the entities that relate to the being will be able to be exposed. The temporality we are looking at is the one equivalent to care. This primordial condition allows us to see Dasein in his true concepts or his true colors, and so it allows us to see the entities who relate directly to Dasein's existence and its authentic potentiality for being a whole. Dasein has a longing to have a potential for being a whole, complete. Because of the finality, the finiteness of Dasein, he longs for potential for being a whole entity. Because Dasein also is a thing and is an entity and it loves to be whole. But as you know, it's not immortal, it's mortal. It comes to an end. But it's always longing for potentiality for being whole. This means the struggle of Dasein to live forever or finite existence, just as I was saying. When we interpret care primordially and linking it with the concept of temporality, we see that this is a struggle of Dasein and the authentic potentiality for being whole, and the idea of staying forever in alive or being in the world. Our analysis has allowed us to interlink potentiality for being a whole with the struggle against death, guilt, and conscience. A question lingers in the horizon. Is it only through the window of existence that Dasein being can be scrutinized? We ask that question. There is a route of everydayness that has been tried in doing existential analysis of the above question being a whole of Dasein, might be ontologically. There is an opening of deciphering existentiality, the being of Dasein. A better route could be looking at the existence of Dasein ontologically through the route of being towards the end, meaning death. This is one end of Dasein that we know. The other one is when he is born and becomes an entity in its own right in the world. Between death and birth, there is the whole, which in the real sense is the one we are trying to analyze and see the entities that occupy this area. Because between your birth and the day you die, there is history. Temporality temporizes. Time and space passes. Activities pass, come and go. And as these temporalities temporize, history is jotted down. The activities of Dasein as entities who make him are being deciphered and unconcealed. History is being formed. That's simple. A better route could be looking at the existence of Dasein ontologically through the route of being towards the end, meaning death. This is the one of Dasein. This is one end of Dasein that we know. Okay, I think I had read that one. It is actually what gives us the issue of being born and then dying at a certain time. So let me continue this, just push ahead a little bit. The history of the birth life, or what Martin Heidegger calls being towards the beginning, has in most cases been ignored when deciphering the Dasein's being. These are things which have been ignored. They're